Today we are here for the first person Plural is the name of this panel, Poets Speaking for Self and Community in Poetry and Memoir, which is a large container for a lot of ways the individual voice is in conversation with the collective voice, is how I'm thinking about it. But we'll see how everyone's gonna think about it. Everyone's gonna read up here for like 10 minutes, and then there's gonna be a conversation. Yep, that's the shape of this afternoon for us. And I have a lot of things to say to you before we begin. I'm gonna stand. Also, hi, grateful to get to share the space with y'all. Big fan, you know. Okay, we're gonna start with a land acknowledgement they printed out. Okay, land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are gathering on the unceded ancestral lands of the Shoshone speaking people known as the Huichin. We are committed to living our values by promoting the history of these people, recognizing that they are still here as vital members of our community, and creating a space where all literary voices are celebrated and all stories are honored. So hold that. Thank you for the Bay Area Book Festival. Today we're joined by four really amazing writers who I know in one way or another and I'm a fan of in multiple ways. They didn't print out bios, so I'll just say what I find special about them. José Vadi's last book, Chipped, is really amazing, and their book launch was really beautiful, and there were all these hot, skaters in their 40s there, who are into books, which is a niche type for me that I just learned about. Applause for José Vadi, yes. Okay. And then we have Brontez Purnell, who I've been a fan of since college. And they have a song called Danny, and that was called? Yeah, and me and my friends were like, wow. But then also, they've written multiple books and graphic novels that are also amazing. So a round of applause for Brontez. We have Priscilla Wathington here, who's an amazing Palestinian American poet who I got to read with recently at SFSU, whose chapbook is stunning and works at the intersection of a lot of sort of documentarian poetics and also really thoughtfully sort of built lyric voice. I don't know, big fan. Round of applause for Priscilla. And then we have Adrienne Chung, whose first book, Organs of Little Importance, was published in the October, okay, Scorpio book, and it boop boop boop. What's it? Winner of the National Poetry Series, really beautiful collection, and yeah, we're all very lucky to be joined by these four writers who write poems and other things. Okay, sorry, I should have gone through this list. I'm Sam, by the way. I meant to say that. Welcome to the Bay Area Book Festival. I'm supposed to say that too. Please join us in thanking some sponsors that aren't mentioned. Book sales and signing location are listed below. Yep. Do we know? At Books Inc. right yonder, and y'all should buy all their books, and then every other book they've written and recommended as well. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah. I was asked to start off with a little poem before Jose takes us into the real writers moment. But yeah, this is a poem in solidarity with the encampment on campus here. And yeah, folks who are putting their bodies and livelihoods at risk to stop the ongoing genocide in Palestine. And yeah, okay. And this is an ode to those who block tunnels and bridges. Teach us there can be movement in stillness. In each broken syllable of traffic, a syllabus that says, when you are suffering, we are all unwell. Let us distill business as usual down to the speed of a tree eating light. As usual, business is built from freight trains and warships, even when it's just coffee. These bridges should only connect the living, so when the living turn toward death worship, it's time again to still the delivery of plastics and red meats to the galas of venture capital. Time to reject our gods if they are not the gods who teach us all that comes from dirt returns to it holy. The holiest word I know is no. No more money for the endless throat of money. No more syllogisms that permission endless suffering, no more. And on the 8th day of a holiday that represents a people fighting occupation, my teachers who stretched a drop of oil into a week of light take each other's arms across 8 bridges of this settler colony and sing prayers older than any country as the chevron burns still in the distance. Oh, stilted vernacular of life. O pedagogues of the godly pausing, oh, what respite lets mycelia spread its speaking limbs beneath the floors of our cities. The only holy land I know is where the living are living. In the story I was taught alongside my first language, it takes God 6 days to make the terrible world. And on the 7th, he rested. And on the 8th, we blocked traffic. Cool, thank you. Okay, so that was just a little teaser poem from me, who's mostly just a big fan of the work that you're about to see today. So if you like anything you hear, let's have a reciprocal relationship where we co-create an environment together of mutual reciprocity and poesy, which is the earlier term for poetry. But y'all ready for your first reader? Let's go. Okay, let's get a standing ovation for José Vadi. On your feet. Let's go. Let's go.
This is like the Pledge of Allegiance or something.
Feel free to stand or sit.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. Maybe we'll jump off the tent by the end of the reading. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I realize it's a Sunday morning and you guys all came out to hear people scream words at you. So thank you guys for coming out. Really appreciate it. I'm going to read this poem about this essay. That's actually a poem in disguise about skateboarding, and we'll just go from there. This is called Chipped. I skated my favorite deck so long that its final abused form was a mangled rocket ship. All deformed, bruised nose and short, flattened tail, I rode that baby blue board off sets of stairs and loading docks for months, slid it across curbs and benches, threw it in the bushes to enter places that didn't allow skateboards, returning to find it lying there, undisturbed and unwanted by those unfamiliar with its magic potential. It was a shop board sold by my local utility board shop, the store's logo just above the 4 drill marks, 2x2 for the back truck's base plate and the hardware, holding it together. Shop boards were cheaper than pro boards and slightly more expensive than factory blanks since they were dipped in a single coat of paint and maybe had the shop's logo slapped on somewhere painfully obvious. Growing up, I consistently rode shop boards because of their price point. Big-footed, lanky, and tall, I hit puberty at the same time as I developed my fervent appreciation for skateboarding, with more and more boards snapping upon impact. The girls' skateboards, Guy Mariano board with the Italian flag, snapped trying a kickflip down the 5-stair at Laverne's Municipal Water Treatment Building. The Adrienne Lopez Pro Model Zero skateboards decks with a 4 horseman drawing, snapped on a ledge trick 1 week into ownership before I could even chip the board by accident. But it was this sky blue board that felt so proper, so intrinsic to my skateboarding at the time that upgrading to a new board and discarding whatever opportunities the shop board still held seemed akin to self-harm. We had learned how to coexist for this many weeks, months after all. Why not see how long it would last? Fear of change is both superstition and microcosm, an approach to the tools of our joy that says something about what those joyful dimensions really look and feel like. Skaters approach each trick attempt with muscle memory and a confidence affected by cracks in the sidewalk, sirens on the street, and fear. With every board, we create a ledger of everything learned and experienced upon it. The more centered the middle board marks, the better the board slides. The front truck hangers, jaggedly destroyed in a 45-degree pattern, showcase attempted crooked grinds. I liked writing random crap on my stickers as they got shredded, or at my most dreamy, scrawling Carpe Diem in whiteout on the grip tape just above the back truck along the side, as if I would forget to seize the day at age 12, 13, and beyond, let alone for something as addictive as skateboarding. Now I consider why I didn't upgrade to a better deck or save for a clean, new version of a toy I used every day. A toy that can travel across time and space, measure how fast a body can adjust to a crack before the takeoff point at the top of some stairs, or muscle through a grind along a worn, chewed concrete ledge. Chipping a board is a natural part of skating. A chip is a small piece of board that breaks off around the nose or tail from the wear and tear of skateboarding. Novice or pro, skaters will ride chipboards, but when you're a kid, chipping your board is kind of a rite of passage. Without disposable income, kids ride boards until they nearly disintegrate. the grip tape all mashed up and mangled along the edges where wood used to be. Filling in the chips keeps the bar going as long as possible. It's a symbol of the stubborn dedication to a deck and to a toy as skaters and as adults whose bodies will also reach their inevitable end. But the toy evolves beyond a fad and becomes something more, a compass, a lens, a portal to joy, only found by trying and failing along the way. The irony is the older I get, the more I empathize with those chipped boards I had as a kid, hiding marks and blemishes while maintaining the semblance of a skater as an adult, not wanting to be discarded, wanting to still be seen as useful, functional, and skating, bruised and chipped for as long as possible.
Thank you. Okay, that was stunning. Appreciate it. Okay, on to our next reader. Can we get a standing ovation for Brontez Purnell, please?
Oh, God, please don't.
Yes.
Don't stand. I just wanted to see if I had control, too. You still skateboard? Oh my God. It's like, I turned like 38 and my knees were like, no. So, I'm going to read you 3 poems from 10 Bridges I've Burnt. The first one is called Alumni Sweater. I graduated from UC Berkeley the summer of '88. I am a crowning achievement of liberality. I often wear my Berkeley sweater some 30 years after its relevance to me, near as I can tell when the fabric clings to my perfect muscle daddy gym body. To the rest of the world, all of my bleep is rendered virtually scentless. It's a look that reads, I have sex with white men and I voted for Biden. When I wear my Berkeley sweater to New York City, I read as a P word, and I literally can't deal. But all in all, if I really had to think about it, I am indeed very, very soft and very, very warm. But all this talk aside, I'm still a black man, still a threat. Want to bet? I promise you, swear on my mother's life even, that when I wear my Berkeley sweater back home in Alabama, I read as an outside agitator, which even in Alabama still reads as he has sex with white men and voted for Biden. They wrongly assume, like so many, that I made these choices without weighted reflection or even credit me with splitting the difference of the average mean of general choices a man in my situation is allowed. Rarely does the path of least resistance still not leave my fat ass sweating, and sometimes very rudely is not offered to me at all. I make this look seamless because I am good at it, and I am very, very, very afraid not to. Freshman year at UC Berkeley, I took a Sociology 303 class. I don't know how they let me into like a junior level class as a freshman, but here I am. The class was called Magic and Religion, and it described the trickster as both superhuman and subhuman. Again, I split the difference, because even when I'm telling the truth, I'm always in disguise. Beyond the static of my alumni sweater sit the facts. I am a handsome black man with a fat booty and a demonically expensive liberal arts education. That said, why do I so often stand in front of my bathroom mirror after washing my face the 3rd, 4th, 5th time and think, who will save me from my fate? This one is about being fatherless. Wait, no, being childless. Sorry. It's called Biological Clock Ticking. I violently refute the unspoken cultural assumption that I, a promiscuous gay man and toxic bachelor, should etch on my tombstone unmarried and childless. For I have been a darn good husband to myself and have spent my best years raising all my friends, yet also have whittled time away in group therapy sessions with a great many middle-aged men who are also in recovery and mad at 40 because their parents divorced when they were 10. I try not to judge, but this reads as extravagant to me, that the lie of the nuclear family failed them, and I can't relate. My parents never married, and I had the privileged position of being a pagan love child. My father, the rude man and the prophet, looked at me at 7 and said, son, you were born doomed. And honestly, doomed is just an easier place to operate from. My willful optimism has always operated on the belief that the show must go on. I cry with these men, though also show restraint, out of respect for the friends I've raised that had neither a latch nor a key. But I also share in the sentiment that if something had been better in the past, I might be better in the present too. At this point, it means nothing. But as of late, I do admit the weakness of fearing the fatherhood that eludes me. Too often the same dream, baby sleeping on my chest. I awaken and thinking something is missing. I look to the left and right, but quickly remember there has only ever been me here, and so it goes. I have watched my own effacement, the lines on my face grow numerous, the hair that keeps graying and falling out, and my midlife crisis is the opposite of other men's. I am only following the law of the universe that everything eventually cools to the temperature around it. Though all in all, my biological clock has been newly set to ticking, and well past my youth, my body remains a hand grenade. This one is for all the children in the audience, of which we all are one. It's called If I Had a Time Machine, I'd Kill My Parents. So the question goes, what would you do if you had a time machine? Of course, the only answer is kill my parents. But I, being in the habit of problematizing everything, wants to kill the version of my parents that are already dead, the people they were in the 80s and even into the early 90s. I see my mother wilting on the floor, exhausted. She doesn't raise hell with me anymore, not because of any great fear of consequence, but simply because she doesn't have the energy anymore. What we call wisdom could easily be called fading of hormonal response. And it's fine, because now that I'm my parents' age, I understand it all too well. I have an anarchist friend who laments that his mother simply won't go to therapy, and that's bad. But I dare not say to him that sitting in a room with some white man won't melt away her 60-plus years of muscle memory trauma. Our parents defy therapy. And unlike many of my generation, I am actually silent impressed at the level of a-hole these people are. My poor father, all he wanted me to do was like women and shut the fuck up. I literally only had one job, or two, depending on how you look at it. I used to say, why would I marry a woman just to disappoint her? But honestly, my boyfriends tend to be disappointed too, and I don't have sex with them either. All my father could see was that I grew up with my own room and a colored TV, a far cry from him sharing bathwater with his 9 siblings. No, he's fine, and generationally, he's actually right. Paired against what he knows of the world, my trauma reads as unremarkable to him, perhaps even common. I'm the reason you're handsome is how he ends a fight. Of course, he lets himself off the hook, and if I really had to deal with the predicament of whose fault my childhood was, all I can say is it took a village. Speaking of which, back to the village empress. My mother, the feminist angst of the 70s and 80s said that women are more than allowed to hate their husbands and their bosses. But how did children get off the hook so easily? Hating your children is perfectly feminist. We conclude the trifecta of marriage, house, and imprisonment. True, we didn't ask to be born, but that hardly holds up in court, because dang, we really did ask for everything else. My poor mother, all she wanted me to do was shut up. She didn't even care if I liked women. She just wanted me silent, a child of divine silence. I recognize now that in her heart buzzed a migraine and that women must always be tired, and I have inherited yet another feminine trait, exhaustion. I don't really need a time machine, as the earth spinning is one, and being in the collapse of gravity, I too succumb to centrifugal force. The machine of time will do this to us all, and I join my mother on the floor. Oh, the years, the bloody noses, broken bones, screaming matches, melt to nothing, and submit to the laws of earth and memory. That time, pressure, and erosion decay everything, even perhaps my anger, and despite all refusal, we remain heroes. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah. Before
Ooh,
How do you feel about a standing ovation before your...
Yeah, right?
Okay. Yeah, can we have a quick standing ovation for Priscilla
I meant for
Wathington,
you.
please? Oh, no, no.
Oh, shoot.
Okay, yeah.
I meant for you. That was so amazing. Both of you, really. This is really amazing company. Thank you, Sam, for bringing us together. I like to start in the company of beloveds. So I'm going to start with a poem by Carolina Ebed. It's called Palestine, the Metaphor. It's a poem that really just lives with me. Palestine, the metaphor, says to me, no, I'll not Palestine, the future country, not Palestine, the vehicle, holy, oh most holy, I'll not theater, the Palestine, not otherwise it, nor tempest it green and black and red and black and ash and black war. I'll not war. Palestine is not a war. No sixth-day victor to come. No seventh day, its waste of daffodils. To Carolina. I'm going to read to you a little bit out of my chap, which comes out of human rights work around Palestinian children in Israeli military detention. This first poem contains two voices, one of a former soldier who shared their story on breaking the silence, and one of a former child detainee. You enter their house, and if you have to break a window, you preventing me from moving, I was still in bed. If you have to get on the table, you one to each hand and a third connecting the first two. If you have to make a mess of their house, I wanted to sit on the seat, but one of them. Leave without tidying up. I was blindfolded, because that's how it is, nothing to be. When I asked, they would beat. Because we're waging a just, where they would take. These are the things carved in my. She asked if they had every evening when you enter houses. I know it's confusing to know if clapping is appropriate, but I take the clapping as your sign of receiving, so thank you. Silicon Wadi. Sore to the eye are we, rough-hewn along the forehead, industry of calf and car parts, of pajama, the kind you wear in a house of kerosene by day, hot water bottle by night, of a hankering for rose water and sheep intestines. When we bring Tel Aviv home, it's in our shirts, free ketchup packets, rocks for the taboon, a laugh too large for the permission granted. Of brown bag bizr on the bus, we spit fallahin after 2 generations of trousers, our grandmother's hair, the orange of kenefe. Of vegetable soap that still slides around the squatting bathroom shower. Of a town disappearing into a theory of silicon in a dried out valley. Of a tap wiped with bleach just this hour, bucket perfectly positioned for a doctrine of pipes. I'm going to do one more from my chap and a couple newer ones. White Kia. What happened to me was a mouth. White Kia pulled over. Inside a wave curl, a common gnaw. Kidnapped us without saying a word. My ribs, prayer in its cavity. Had their handguns, bowels of clam and merman, threw us into the trunk, sink all bubbles into the illustration. Felt my body was breaking, the list of unknown long. They took us like lanternfish that dark away with their tiny lights, a mattress that had not seen the sun. Each day, my commune with the whale refused me water. Its wants appear forays of sudden color. Just because I called Abu Amir a rat, we ask what we are in common denominators. My friends who confessed against me, what of us? And all profits for this chap are going to direct aid for Gaza. And I also encourage folks to give to Defense for Children International Palestine, who continues to be the front line of legal defense for these children who have been arrested. And I'm going to read a little bit of new work. This one is called About the Author, kind of an alternative bio. Ask me what I am, I'll say. I slept in Jerusalem last night. I didn't drag my suitcase over the earthen barrier, hack the iron gate. During the exam, the optometrist says, there are some parts of the light field that I shouldn't see. I cheated, looked away from the black box, drove my car over stalks of khobezi. See how I beg for attention, how I bury wild rosemary in the pinprick where the optic nerve enters your skull. She says she can show me the subsurface of my cornea on her monitor, how my vein bulges but doesn't burst. Some patients have thrown up after seeing. I haven't vomited since I abandoned my anorexia, swallowed the spoon instead. My throat is so flexible, I could birth a restaurant called Oasis in Ohio. I could retch sequins over your rice. At my teta's house in An-Nasra, we always ate fried fish with a side of cracked wheat. My sister would squeeze the lens out of the fish's eye and look through. See a picture of my peeled eye. The smudge where she held my eyelashes back pushed me into the light. And those opening lines about dragging your suitcase, that's like the path to the airport. That's what we have to do. This poem is not about the genocide, and I'm going to end here and pass on to my wonderful colleague here. This poem is not about the genocide. It is about your mother, gorgeous and alive. I kiss her as I pass her on the street. Her eyes are shiny and full of music. I tell you, at 80, she is healthier and stronger than me. In the evenings, she leaps across the hills like a freshly sheared sheep. Nothing harasses her, not even a mosquito. She scolds the old moon and washes the jam off its face. And no one tells her that only in the West Bank is this kind of jumping allowed, or only in the area called B can you wash a friend's face. She visits anyone she wants. Everyone is home. They say, come, come, and they pass around trays of overfilled glasses of juice. Not the artificial, syrupy kind sold at cardboard counters behind the shutters of tear-gassed corners, but the tangy, sweet juice of an orange from a lush orchard in Jaffa, picked only when it's hanging low and dimpled, then driven to the market on a smooth and easy road. In this poem, there are no roadblocks between Jaffa and your mother's house. There are no turnstiles and no guns. No soldier lifts out an orange and chops it up to check if it is hiding a bomb. The roads are just roads. They go here and there without drones. Sorry, got stuck. And the houses stand beside them, just as they did yesterday and last year, full of jammy towels and soft words. And on the stoop outside one such house, your mother is learning to play the oud. The strings twang as she plucks them curiously. And the words she sings are like those you might hear anywhere. Something about time, something about life, too ordinary to record. Thank you all for being with me in Free Palestine.
Beautiful. Y'all, 3 out of 4 bangers. Can't wait for this final performance. What an ensemble. But can we do I know we did a standing ovation for everybody thus far, but can we do one but be terrifying about it? Can we just stand and scream?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Okay, for our final reader, Adrienne Chung. Well, thank you.
That was amazing. I think it's really healthy to get people to stand up during a reading because it gets kind of tiring, especially in the sun. So I think this is a really good thing to do at all readings, maybe. Just repeated standing ovations. Right, I'll start with a poem about a bad wedding I went to. It was my cousin also. Ceremony. How many permutations of first cousins, none removed, could there possibly be? I asked the photographer if time were a string or a bowl of pearls, because I happen to think of it actually as a beach. Its blonde baubles crushed and raked along the coastline, Zen garden of relativity. When I understood that she did not understand me at all, I left and pornographically cried in the terracotta-tiled bathroom, the door to which did not open onto a moonlit balcony where a handsome man stood smoking a cigarette with sex appeal and feeling. I re-entered instead into a scene whose great distance from my adulthood I give daily thanks, but for which I was, at the time, condemned to for eternity. I was wearing a long dress. The night stars were hidden by blonde babble hovering like the false ceiling of an office building. I sat at a long table of people whose way of life I mutually did not respect and whose index fingers did not point correctly down the fork and knife which split open the meat. I opened my third eye in desperation. I took 3 small steps in the direction of the North Star before resigning to my seat, where I pressed an imaginary finger to my prefrontal cortex and rubbed furiously in small circles to the thought of running away until I achieved orgasm in front of everyone I hated, the burst brilliant as diamonds. Once a spiritualist whom I met on a dating site told me that 1 orgasm on the astral plane is equivalent to 10,000 orgasms on Earth, occurring simultaneously in every cell of your body. How could I believe him? How could I not? That was based on a true story from beginning to end, and then I did go to a terrible wedding, and I did go on a date with a spiritualist who actually lived in Berkeley, no surprise. He was a playwright who did astral projection travels, and he told me that exact fact. I do both believe him and not believe him, I think for the next poem I'll read one that I wrote when I was during lockdown in Wisconsin, actually. So I just moved to Wisconsin for my grad program in 2019, and then immediately after COVID happened, and just the alienation of being from the West Coast, transplanted to the Midwest, plus the isolation of COVID was terrible. One second. The stenographer. I have no house cat, no TV, no lover I can touch. I sing a song in a house inside my head and imagine children sitting around me, watching in the dark. Some nights I'm scared. I won't be able to sing. No song but the whir of a fan half circling in the bedroom corner, where in my dreams I'm in a valley looking up at the sky. Alien angles of a desert sunset, sparkling violet and bright green. The line between that world and this one, invisible as an ending, where pain would be not punishment, but reprieve. I have not been visible now for a while. I slipped between the hours, barely touching the surface of my life. Time chased me, passing audibly in the winter. Scratch of an ice skate, circling over the neon buzz of the Hy-Vee. I was trailed by a beer can in a lake, shadow of a plane over cornfields, true blue beauty of a Midwestern sunset, landlocked and unburdened by freedom, reeds swaying on the bank, as though it were some other place. Oh, thank you. I do this thing where I don't plan out what I read in advance, so I don't know. Do we all do that? Maybe you feel, no? Okay. Thank you. I'll read a poem called 21st Century Pizza, and it's about this pizza place on Geary in San Francisco that I used to go to all the time as a child in the 80s, and they gave children balls of pizza dough to play with to pass the time. And then I tried to go back there 25 years later, and I couldn't find the place, and I asked my mother about it, and she had no recollection. In fact, no one has any recollection of this place on Geary. Oh my God, you know where it is? Okay, we'll talk later. 21st Century Pizza. I was seduced through a window one night by a man in a large black headset, miming a waltz in an empty gaming parlor. Rain fell as I huddled under the frame like a stray, waiting for a world to open through a door. For 5 minutes, I could work for free in a sandwich shop, a pet store, or a pizzeria, which I chose by accident as he placed the headset onto me, tightening the straps and asking if I was okay. I was okay, but possibly unprepared, something for which I am prepared due to a life of frequent relocation, general misfortune, and poor choices in love. There was a pizza shop on Geary that gave children balls of pizza dough to knead to pass the time, clumps of dampened flour, soft as actual angels in my hands. From that day on, I craved its supple pliancy, how it yearned for the empty spaces between my fingers. I dreamed of its meat, its sweetness in my mouth. Years later, when I came home, no one remembered such a place, dark and narrow in my mind's eye, dusted in the fine flour of memory's electric powder. There was no photo, no witness, no evidence to burn, because nothing is real here except to me. I love this audience. I love that standing ovation. People probably were thinking something really great happened. Well, I mean, something really great did happen, obviously, but. For my final poem, I will read a sad love poem, which does comprise the majority of my book. I guess maybe I'll say something about the title. So organs of apparent importance is a term from Charles Darwin on the origin of species. And it's a term for the organs that persist, such as the tonsils, the appendix. My favorite of these organs is the male nipple. That's a vestigial organ, categorically. I didn't make the rules, but apparently there's no use for them, there's no function. They're just there. I didn't make the rules. Just saying what I'm told. So I applied that phrase to the psyche. So I guess the theme of my book is, why do we hold on to things that we don't need to hold on to? Why do these things persist? That kind of thing. Why do male nipples persist psychically? The day you left, I remembered how the heart is a small window pane in a train speeding backward, circling one life from summer into spring and into winter. I watch the flora disappear from the white noon, trace her name on the glassy muscle now brittle from a cold which enters me, room by room, my body freezing in sections like the ice crusting over Lake Mendota. In waking life, I look out onto a grassy courtyard now bathed in snow, invisible sun refracting the ghost of autumn heat, which heat up our backs last year and the year before that, when I lay in bed thinking about how you told me you loved me while fucking me, while loving me, while fucking me. The sky outside staggered and drifting, how I misread affection for sadism, sadism for ablution, ablution for the thing which scrubs one clean. Thank you.
Amazing. That was such a beautiful reading. I was in such a horrible mood this morning, and now I'm in such a less horrible mood. Thank you. Okay, so that's the first portion of our time together, and now we're going to pivot into a conversation. Yep, I have a handful of questions, but also I invite y'all, if you're not about to flee, to sit and marinate in like some questions that came up for you during that reading. And then I will perhaps wander around and give you a microphone like a talk show host, and you can, say it aloud through the speakers, the voice of God. Okay, I had a question for all y'all, and it was largely around the odd umbrella category of this reading, the name of the reading. First person plural, poet speaking for self and community in poetry and memoir, which to me feels like a lot, Like it could mean so many things. Like it asks questions about the nature of the self as like a written document, how you connect to your communities. So I guess I wanted to break it down a little bit, and I wanted to think about my first part of it is how do you think about the autobiographical impulse in your work, how you represent yourself in your writing? Does that change over time? Just like a broad question about the nature of the soul and the self. And if anyone has any thoughts about that in your current book project or the thing that you're reading from today. Cool. Do you want to, you got your thing? Yeah.
Right. I'm going to answer indirectly with an anecdote, because that's my personality. I'm sorry. Once I was taking an Arabic exam, and the teacher gave us this essay, and it was write about the most life-changing experience you had. It was that's your essay. Think about the most life-changing event you had and describe it. And after we've all written these essays and we turn them in, he says, every time I give this exam and I ask this question, all the international students and all the Global Souther students write about an event that affected the whole country or the whole world. And he said, all my white American students write about an event that affected only them. And of course, he says this after we've turned it in. And so people are kind of stressed out. But that's kind of what it feels like to me, is the event that was life-changing is also an event that affected a much larger group than just you. And so to turn the eye to just the individual doesn't feel, it's not really possible, because you're sort of caught up in something that is not only your individual moment.
That was just so applause. This is a good response. Thank you, Priscilla.
It's hard not to write in the plural because, all of us on a congressional level represents 100 people, as it's been explained to me.
Wait, what does that mean?
No, when you're when they think about politically, my voice actually represents about 100 people. There's probably 100 people going through the same thing or experiencing the same thing. Or it's a really scientific and boring way to look at it, but it's totally true.
Oh, I love that. Cool, thank you. impossible to speak for herself. Well, yeah.
I'm often asked after my readings how I'm able to be so candid and talk about my life so much, and I think there's two types of people in the world. There's oversharers and non-oversharers. Oversharers, we just overshare, and it takes no bravery on my part. I'm actually just talking. I've had blogs since I was 14, publicly telling the whole world about everything that was going on in my life. And that impulse continues to this day in formal verse. So that's, from my own point of view, what makes it easy to write, kind of related to your question. But also, I think a common question is, if you write so confessionally, so personally, how do you expect the whole reading audience to relate to you? And my answer for that is that there's a James Joyce quote that goes, "The universal is in the particular." And basically, the more specific you are with your experience, the easier it is for people to relate to you, even if they don't come from your background. Speaking in abstractions, for example, like if you say, "He bit into the sandwich with the fervor of 1,000 suns," versus maybe he bit into the sandwich after a day working as if he were 4 years old again and his mother wasn't watching, and you have a lot more sensory inputs. So these markers of specificity actually make it more relatable, even though it's very different from your own experience. That's what I have to say. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think like specifically with this project of writing around a book about skateboarding, so inviting people that don't skate to read about skateboarding. Skateboarders already are just waiting to be misrepresented by mainstream media, both visually in terms of how a photograph or video of skateboarding is documented, let alone on text where it's like the radical, awesome, cowabunga skateboarder is cruising, like all that kind of hyperbolic stuff that makes us as skateboarders feel very cringe. But then as you as a skateboarder to represent the whole by way of this book or by way of any type of narrative that says like skateboarding is this or skateboarding makes me feel this, you feel there is that responsibility of trying to stay true to the culture in terms of like terminology and presentation, but like the degree to which you explain things to folks that are not skateboarders is something that I wrestled a lot with in this book, and sometimes I don't explain anything, and I force the reader to just work and understand the physicality I'm trying to describe, and other times I really break down what an ollie is in order to make a larger point. But inviting people into this kind of subculture or this big culture, depending on how you look at skateboarding, was a funny kind of navigation of that self and how to speak for the whole.
Awesome, thank you. Can we applaud that first round of answers, which were this? Maybe it's also the foam on the microphone, but it does very much feel like daytime talk, like TV, and I want to like cause some drama. All right, well, I have one more. I got a bunch of questions. I'm gonna ask one more, but then sort of invite y'all to ask some questions. I was curious about the for in this title. To remind us again, first person plural poet speaking for self and community in poetry and memoir. And I was interested in that word, like as like an interstitial, like on behalf of, right? Like speaking to, or instead of like to or toward or of or because or in gratitude or in service of, right? It's speaking for. And I guess I'm curious about this question of like both like what communities do you feel like indebted to, in service to? And do you feel like you're speaking like for people in your work, or is there like a different relationship between your writing and community? And last part of the question, feel free to like ignore everything and just say whatever you want to, but like, has there been like drama where you feel like you're speaking like, you're like, oh, I'm writing this in service XYZ, and then someone's like, wow, I wish that was a bad, like, I'm not about it. Does any of that make sense? Sorry, I didn't sleep very much. Okay.
I think there's always drama when I write, because I'm a narcissist with a heart of gold, and I tend to surround myself with other narcissists, and so my writing's never about me. It's always about other people. And then there's this one guy that, like, because the pillow talk joke I would make is like, yeah, there's a whole chapter in my book about you, but there totally wasn't. I was just saying that. Anyway, he read the book and he was like, wait, which chapter was about me? And I was like, oh, that was just like a joke. And he's like, well, which chapter is about so-and-so? And I'm like, wait, I write like fictionally. It's not really about anybody. And then he went on Amazon to the comment section and he was like, this writer is a liar. This work is fictional. This book isn't about any of these people. And I was like, yeah, it like even says fictional on the book.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
I think I write on behalf of women who have been personally antagonized by a skater.
Ooh, on this panel too.
No, not this one, just skaters. Skater
Yeah,
boys.
I can't apologize on behalf of all skaters, but I would like to in this moment. Shit. Damn. Man.
That's really brave of you.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know. Well, that's the thing, though, right? Like skaters, there's a particular stereotype in the context of writing for the whole. Like everyone has a very preconceived notion of what a skateboarder is. It could be anything from Bart Simpson to Tony Hawk. You know what I mean? It's like a very wide spectrum to like write towards or try and represent. And you can only really, in my case, like kind of. I was more so curious of like, let's expand the conversation of what a skateboarder is. Is a skateboarder who's someone who's been doing it from age 12 to 40, or is it someone that's been on for 6 months, or is it a friend, or someone who's been slighted by a skater, or someone who's hung out with a skater, and or a DJ that works at skate events, like bringing more of the filmmakers, the musicians, everybody into the room as part of like the skateboard community is something I wanted to reference in the book, so that there's shout outs to certain skate like inside jokes and stuff like that, but there's also shout outs to certain music and culture and fashion that even if you were a rave kid, you might have messed with in the 90s. So I don't know, I was trying to be more intersectional with it. But as a result of that, and per Adrienne's comment, the community is so broad that like you can't represent all of it, or else you're like unintentionally part of the evil as well as the good.
Thank you.
Not all skaters.
Hashtag.
Hashtag not all skaters.
I mean, I don't know if I exactly relate to the language of the, on behalf of and for. I mean, I think I write without an assumption that the audience is not of me, I write with a sense of responsibility to people who I love, to my wider community, to my Palestinian siblings in this life and in poetry. So there is a sense of on behalf of, just in the sense of like your definition of self is broader. And so there is a constant sense of some sort of responsibility towards some group that you have decided to consider your interior place. So that feels very true to me. I'm not writing as a kind of like wrecking ball approach toward that group of people, for sure, right? And if there are moments where a poem might be received by the white gaze in that way, I pause, right? And I consider like how my words could be taken and used in a way that was against me or against us. And I'm very cautious around that. So I think it's all about like finding agency, but an agency that makes room for many, not just for myself. Beautiful.
Thank you so much. Wow. Here's another round of applause for this question. And here we have these. Wait, what? Oh, I was going to make a joke about daytime TV, but I don't remember anything about daytime TV. We have these fine gifts for these panelists. Nah. All right, never mind. Okay, so I have other questions, but I wanted to turn it to y'all who have been sitting in the sun and listening. What's that? Huh?
There's a mic.
Oh, there's a mic. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, there's a microphone right here. If anyone wants to line up and ask our fine panelists some questions, about the topic of the panel or perhaps anything else that came up for y'all. Oh, please.
Check.
So, Jose, it's a comment, not a question. You see before you a true skateboarder. My first skateboard was a 2x4 on which I hammered in my ball-bearing roller skates, front and back. You have not been a skateboarder unless and when they started manufacturing this, I went, what? That's not skateboarding. Thank you.
Everyone bow down to a real one right there. That is 100% Thrasher right there. Thank you so much. Yes, standing ovation for that. Thank you.
Coincidentally, my question's also for Jose. I'm really curious about the thing you said around how much to share about skating for people who didn't know about it, and where you decided to draw that line in terms of, I need to define this thing, or audience has to figure it out on their own.
For sure, yeah. The question is, like around how much I think in certain essays I really try to break down like a certain trick, like that's foundational, like an ollie, where like you propel yourself, it's like a jump, to really try to make like these kind of baseline points around what skateboarding is, and just like, if I can get this granular on this trick, then any other tricks that I describe in the future, you kind of understand, because I'm literally describing its root. So knowing that I'm describing like the root of this single trick, and you can probably apply it to other tricks in the book, I think after that point, I don't really describe like too much what certain tricks are, other than to describe like a larger point. For instance, there's an essay in the book about Sun Ra, the jazz musician, how I'm envisioning that Sun Ra is my favorite skater. And I'm daydreaming into existence this reality of Sun Ra being able to heel flip over cars and do tail slide the sides of buildings. You don't even need to know what those tricks are, but on the obstacle that they're being done upon and who's doing it, you can understand how bombastic or how ridiculous it is. And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make, is like, what's the larger argument I'm trying to make? It's not necessarily the fact that this heel flip goes left and not right, like a kick flip, but it's the fact that Sun Ra is a 60-plus-year-old man in like Huaraches, doing this shit on a car. So, it's just, but if I can describe one trick that's like foundational and you can apply it as a reader to everything else that you're reading, then that helped me out in terms of different parts of the book.
Thanks for that question. I've got some more that I can ask. Does anyone else have like an urgent thing that they're like? Okay, Armin. Round of applause for Armin. And then I'll close this out with one. Yeah.
Hi. In the spirit of the controversial talk show spirit, I was wondering if there are any ways in which you have to, or you find yourself writing not for or on behalf of, but maybe against a community, or not. Are there any ways that there are rifts? Because the community is not homogenous, right? Even siblings have rivalries. And I was interested in how you address those rifts, especially when they can be misunderstood by an audience who is not part of that community, if that makes sense.
Thank you for that wonderful question. Round of applause for that question.
I have no problem hexing, slagging, throwing mud at people. People do it to me all the time. But when I really want to win a war, I wait to write about it 10 years later. So I let them have all their time, but then I'm just like, I know that I will have the final say and I'll get paid for it.
I think for me, some of it has to do with, and thank you for that question. I guess, how do you define an us? Okay, for me, the us has to do with like basic human rights. Okay, so the us can never ask itself if it is a part of my interior to deny that. So I can't deny that. And then I guess there's also the question of sort of audience embedded in there. And for that, I feel like you have to try to figure out how to teach the reader how to read what you're presenting. Because we're all kind of presenting like really wildly different things and worlds and ways of being in language. And I do feel like sometimes that can be hard to achieve in a single, 2-minute reading or a single text. And you have to kind of think about like, how am I going to contextualize what I'm doing within a wider world, which shows you like what I'm about, what I'm doing. So I think it has to do with, in some way, taking up space for that full vision of what you're trying to deliver and to offer. Does that make sense? Does that kind of answer? Yeah. Thank you for that.
Gorgeous response. Thanks. Do either of y'all have any responses to that? Okay. Yeah. I'll just say I think of also like literature as a space for like multiple conflicting voices and truths, and I like to turn to like polyvocality as like a way of like holding dissonance or discordance between like myself and various communities I'm a part of. You know what I mean? That's my thought about it. And I also like agitation, but this isn't about me. So I'm gonna pivot to my last question for y'all. Maybe this will close us out. I know y'all are folks who work across like multiple forms, you know, both like inside of like writing and like formal gestures as poets. We've got, you know, a musician, and you do like visual work as well. And so when thinking about like what sort of shape or container for your project to take, how do you like come to that in your writing process? And like for folks who write poems, you know what I mean, like what are like and this is like a craft question, you know, so like how do you decide on like the right sort of like container for like to be a vehicle for the thing you're trying to say, and to whom? Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah, it was something about form. Like how do you decide, like, because I feel like your books are like wildly different, like form. Like you have a book of poems out now, and you had like the last one was a linked story collection, and the music and graphic novels. So like, how do you decide on sort of like what sort of form or genre to like make a work in, and does that speak to different like people or communities?
I think one theme can happen across 4 different types of things wildly differently. So, and I think it's best to explore one theme across a physical landscape, an emotional landscape, and all of that, because it will speak back to the other works, and I think aid in them.
Love that. Thanks.
I tend to kind of be one of those like obsessive people. Like when there's something I'm like really, like recently I've been studying the ghazal a lot, and I've been just taken with this concept of like disunity across the stanzas and the resistance to linear narrative. And so I feel like when I'm in that mode of like really pursuing the question of how something is functioning, I'll end up writing into that because it's like what I'm just kind of in. And then sometimes I'll maybe like go back to other works that didn't ever arrive anywhere and push them through a form to see what happens to them and like learn something, figure out if it's the right intentions. But yeah, I think it is an important question. And I do think like in the past, I would maybe more flippantly engage with a form without reading a whole bunch within that and just like seeing how it's working in different places and what its original intentions are. Now that's much more important to me. I think it's age and energy to like more strategic movement than just sort of like trying lots of stuff all at once. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Thank you.
I can talk about why. So I write in form a lot. So in Shakespearean sonnet, the ghazal as well, which isn't so common these days. But I feel like there is a resurgence in rhyme and form coming back right now in the poetry world. But I choose to write in form because it has like a built-in intertextuality. Like if you read a sonnet, you can't not think of a Shakespearean sonnet. So you automatically think of all the Shakespearean sonnets that you've read, and you think of all the different plays, and then the formal constraints make it really easy to sort of pop in allusions from those sonnets or from Dante, because all those people wrote in some sort of meter or form. So it's a very built-in polyvocality, and you're also speaking towards all past generations, like almost everyone who ever wrote a sonnet in a way. So that's why I like it. Also, I find it really easy to write in form because all the decisions you make in poetry are, or many of them are gone in that you have 10 syllables per line, you cut the line there. There's only so many words that rhyme, so it makes it very easy for me to write formal verse over free verse. Yeah, I'm a formalist. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of write from like a drawing board mentality. Like I have like a lot of like, I take a lot of photos of a lot of places that I want to write about, or I do research around like videos and film and ephemera. Like ephemera is like a very big inspiration for writing for me. So in terms of form, it's almost like it's kind of like the last thing I think about, ironically enough. It's just like, here's all this stuff I want to write about. How do I want to write about them? Like, do I want to, for me, like poems are like screams. So it's just like, do I just want to just like, blah, like do you just want to like put this on the page in this way? Do I want to like connect it to other arguments and other forms in the form of an essay? Is this like a fictional character that I'm dreaming up and try to apply it in that way? But it starts with just having like amassing just stuff I'm into, and then like hoarder mentality of literature, basically. So this is me disclosing my problem to you all, and if anyone has any advice to get over this, please talk to me at the Q&A, or the signing, excuse me.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I love how all those answers too, like, think about like form or shape as like a way of like connecting to other artists who make work in that form too, or like lineages or histories of that writing. You know, we've got a couple of minutes. Do y'all have any questions for each other? To throw a curveball in here. No pressure, also. It doesn't have to be a public conversation. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if this is a question. It's like sort of ill-formed, but for you, I know that sounded weird. I'm interested in like the taboo, you know, the revelatory space at the taboo, and just how much you shift in your registers. Like, how do you do that?
I paid $70,000 for a theater degree, and I was taught that Shakespeare, in order to achieve pathos, he'd have something really serious, but you'd have to put something funny in. Then you have to put something boring in. Then you have to have the epiphany punctuated, and that's how you get catharsis. So you have to have it all at once. As far as taboo, again, congressionally, I represent 100 people. There is nothing I do that 100 other people aren't doing. So when you write about it, it actually kind of brings people closer together. I'll be like at Berkeley Bowl, and some mom pushing 3 kids was like, yeah, I used to have sex with guys in bathrooms too. I'm really glad that you wrote about that. Blah, blah, blah. You know, like, you'd be surprised at who is on your side. So, no, I think that's why it's, yeah, there's nothing I write about that I think is actually that private or personal or dirty or anything, because I just know that a lot of other people are doing it too.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank y'all so much for your time, for your written work, for your improvisatorial conversation. Thanks for sitting here. Thank you to the Bay Area Book Festival. After this, everyone is required to go buy one of each of their books and then another one for a friend that you care deeply for. And with that in mind, I want to close with 2 things. One, I want you to think of like something you've never told anybody, because, yeah, like a secret. And then after this, I want you to share it with a stranger here. And this is how we're building community. And if we could close this out with one final standing ovation, I invite you to really celebrate these authors and their work. Beautiful, beautiful.
Make some noise for Sam Sax. Make some noise for Sam Sax.
That's nice, Jose. Thank you. Okay, have a good rest of your Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your festival. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Sam.